Thank you, Beth, and Secretary Barrier, Secretary Davin, Kevin, and Senator Kane. Thank you for being here with all of us. And you'll hear from all of them in just a minute, but I want to start, and I want to thank all of you for joining me on this snowy morning. In Pennsylvania, businesses and workers have a lot to overcome, a lot of barriers to overcome to be successful, and that's always been true. But obviously, this past year with the COVID-19 pandemic, that brought significant new hardships with it and new barriers, barriers that make it even harder than it normally is for business owners and their employees to overcome these barriers and find security. So our goal continues to be to lower those barriers and make it easier for businesses and workers to succeed in Pennsylvania. Right now, businesses need immediate relief, and that's why in December I made the $145 million available to help businesses that have been negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. My administration authorized a transfer of money of excess money from the Workers' Compensation Fund. This is over and above the balance, the reserve that the Workers' Comp Fund has to have. And it was $145 million, so that the General Assembly could appropriate the money. They needed to do the formal appropriation to get it in the hands of businesses and workers. And I want to thank the General Assembly because they did that, for working with me to get help to businesses in need and for including that $145 million in the Senate Bill 109. And I signed that the same day within minutes of it arriving on my desk. Point is, our businesses need the fast relief that these funds will provide, but they need more than just one-time fixes. Our businesses need a comprehensive, forward-thinking plan to bolster our economy and support our workforce. Getting Pennsylvania back on track after the pandemic means getting Pennsylvanians back to work quickly. It means investing in the businesses and the workers that drive our economy. And it means developing a sustainable solution to support the long-term economic recovery of Pennsylvania coming out of this COVID pandemic. My plan, which I'm announcing today, is the Back to Work PA plan. Actually, it was in the budget, but it's going to foster economic recovery by investing in our businesses, in our workers, and in our communities. Back to Work PA will assist the workers and business owners that have been most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, using an extraction tax on the natural gas industry to fund a $3 billion investment in Pennsylvania's economic future. This will allow us to invest in a wide array of innovative programs that will help bolster existing businesses. It will improve workforce training and support. It will reduce inequities that hold Pennsylvanians back. It will attract businesses, we hope, back to Pennsylvania to reduce future supply chain disruptions. And fourth, it will help our communities expand their tax bases to help them create new jobs and bring in more revenues. Back to Work PA will help workers by directing education and training resources to support talent development and for talent development in high-demand occupations, with a focus especially on high-quality, well-paying, family-sustaining jobs that lead to good careers. Back to Work Pennsylvania, Back to Work PA will help businesses by increasing supports and incentives, connecting businesses and needed resources, and building the strong, talented workforce that companies right here in Pennsylvania need. And Back to Work PA will help communities by assisting in local recovery efforts and planning for how to better handle future economic disruptions. These investments in people, in businesses, and in communities will help us get back on track. We'll build a brighter future for Pennsylvania. With Back to Work PA, Pennsylvania will build a more diverse and more robust economy than ever before. Our businesses will have the resources and talent they need to grow and thrive, and our workers will have the skills they need to succeed in well-paying jobs and build prosperity for generations to come. So thank you for that, and now I'm pleased to turn this over to talk more about the Back to Work PA plan. I'm going to turn things over to the Department of Labor and Industry Acting Secretary Jennifer Barrier. Secretary Barrier.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning, everyone, on this beautiful snowy morning. I'm Jennifer Barrier, Acting Secretary with the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. We are in the middle of one of the most important eras for economic and workforce development. The world has not seen this magnitude of disruption to the global economy and supply chain since at least World War II. Back then, the disruption caused incredible hardship for many people, but it also created incredible opportunity. Through smart investments at the end of World War II, the United States built a post-war economic boom that made us a lasting powerhouse in the global economy. Today, we have a similar opportunity to turn hardship into leadership. By making smart investments in Governor Wolf's Back to Work PA plan, now we can build up our workforce to make Pennsylvania's workers the most in demand in the country as we emerge into the new post-pandemic world. Let me tell you what the post-pandemic world will look like for our workforce. Everyone will need to have digital skills and access to the internet. Back to Work PA will invest in building opportunities for Pennsylvanians to become digitally literate and close the digital divide so that everyone has the internet access they need to apply for a job and the digital skills they need to keep a job. In the post-pandemic world, Pennsylvania job seekers will need new models for skills development that provide them with the opportunity to earn a living wage while learning specialized skills. Back to Work PA continues to build upon highly successful and in-demand registered apprenticeship programs across the Commonwealth. Businesses will get the skilled workers they need, while those same workers will earn a steady, family-sustaining wage while they learn a new career. In the post-pandemic world, we will need a workforce system that can easily adapt to a future where service delivery has moved to virtual platforms. Back to Work PA builds on what we're already doing at our 60 Pennsylvania CareerLink offices to adapt to the pandemic. We are increasing our Wi-Fi capacity to make sure Pennsylvanians can access our services virtually for things like drive-through career fairs, virtual training programs, and the other services provided by PA CareerLink. With Back to Work PA, we'll focus on delivering proactive and responsive services at each of our PA Career Links to provide the individualized career coaching and wraparound support services needed by the Pennsylvanians that we serve. We know that no two jobs are alike. No two workers are exactly the same, and no two businesses are exactly the same. The individualized services in the governor's Back to Work PA plan recognize this as well. We'll help connect job seekers to the education or training that will set them up for success in the labor market, while also helping businesses connect to the skilled workforce they need. The post-pandemic economy is not going to wait for us. We need to be working now to ensure Pennsylvania is positioned on the starting block for success, and Back to Work PA can help us do just that. If we use this time wisely, if we make good choices and the right investments in our workers, we will set Pennsylvania up for decades of prosperity and economic expansion. Thank you very much. And now I'll turn things over to DCED Secretary Dennis Stavin. Secretary?
Hi, good morning, Jennifer, and thank you very much. And again, my name is Dennis Stavin. I'm the Secretary of the Department of Community and Economic Development here in the Commonwealth. And later this afternoon, I'm going to be joining my colleagues in the General Assembly to discuss Governor Wolf's budget proposal, including one of the most important aspects of his policy plan for Pennsylvania, as he and Jennifer mentioned, his Back to Work initiative. And if you recall, more than a year ago, we were here sounding the alarm for the need for comprehensive infrastructure funding to shore up Pennsylvania's economy and improve life in our communities. And the pandemic hit. And today, that need is greater than ever. Back to Work PA will provide critical funding we need as we continue to navigate our recovery from COVID-19. This plan responds to the state's need for swift, targeted action and allows us a unique opportunity to invest $3 billion over the next 10 years into Pennsylvania's economy, providing relief to families, small businesses, workers, and communities in need, and helping pick up the pieces from the crisis we have faced over the past year and build a more diverse and robust workforce. One recent sobering statistic notes that 75% of American firms report supply chain disruptions as a result of the pandemic. We need to facilitate reshoring to bring manufacturing back to this country and to this Commonwealth. We have one of the nation's strongest manufacturing sectors. Let's use that to our benefit. This problem has a simple solution: making targeted investments funded through a common sense severance tax. on natural gas, a funding source that is readily available and ours to use right now. Our Commonwealth is the second largest natural gas producing state in the country, only to Texas. We have seen other states utilize the benefits of natural gas resources, resulting in improved infrastructure, education, and lower taxes. Pennsylvania produces much more natural gas than we can utilize. More than 75% of what is produced in Pennsylvania right now goes to markets outside of Pennsylvania. To put it simply, we have a product people want, a resource that's only subject to market demands, and it's being exported solely to benefit other states. We have this resource at our fingertips. It's the money we need to position Pennsylvania for a strong recovery, and it should be used to our collective benefit. There's never been a more urgent need for us to act to fix the devastating impact this pandemic has had on our families and our businesses. This is something we take personally at DCED. We're here to better lives, the lives of all Pennsylvanians, to help them not just survive, but to thrive. And right now, our businesses and our communities are hurting. And it's incumbent upon us to stand up, to meet the moment, and help them persevere. Now's not the time for partisan differences. It's the time to stand together and pass a common sense plan that would make a positive impact right now. This pandemic has resulted in countless layoffs, disproportionately impacting marginalized communities and certain industry sectors. Back to Work PA establishes a pathway to support those industries and workers most significantly impacted by our dire circumstances. We must connect individuals that have been laid off and or struggling to obtain employment with reskilling and upskilling training that can funnel them into good paying jobs that are in demand right now. We can do this by partnering with the Department of Labor and Industry and identifying unemployment compensation claimants that are ready to be connected with new training opportunities to make them viable candidates for jobs that urgently need filled right now. So many people who have lost their jobs are ready and have been trying to get back to work, and Back to Work PA facilitate connecting those individuals with these opportunities. Bolstering our workforce only benefits our economy and by extension our communities. One thing we can all agree on in that this pandemic has ravaged our economy and the communities that support it. And we cannot stall on taking major targeted action to expedite a faster recovery. Let's work together to get Pennsylvania back to work. And now what I'd like to do is turn things over to my good friend, Kevin Schreiber, who's the president and CEO of the York County Economic Alliance. Kevin?
Thank you, Secretary Davin, and good morning all. Governor Wolf, it is an honor to join you along with our state secretaries, our state senator, to discuss the Back to Work plan for Pennsylvania. As noted by Secretary Davin, my name is Kevin Schreiber with the York County Economic Alliance, which is York County's certified economic development organization, one of our largest economic change agencies in York County. Unquestionably, the COVID-19 pandemic has torn at the fabric of our society with little aspect of any Pennsylvanian's life not impacted. Governor, your administration has prioritized the modernization of Pennsylvania policies and programs over these past 6 years. The Back to Work plan is one more step in that journey. As a country, we have decades of data demonstrating that jobs follow people. Employers seek access to a talented workforce, and a talented workforce seeks communities with resources to support their professional pursuits. The Back to Work plan is a paradigm shift to people-centered economic policies. The plan would enhance the pipeline for talent development, attraction, retention, and elevation, which in turn benefits our Commonwealth's communities and its businesses. The COVID pandemic has exacerbated longstanding inequities of our economy and brought them to the forefront, including right here in York County. Thank you to the data analysis conducted by Pittsburgh-based Fourth Economy as part of our county's new 10-year economic action plan. We now know that only 27% of living wage jobs in York County are available to workers without a bachelor's degree. Only 7% of our workforce is connected to those living wage jobs by transit. We know that several of our most rapidly growing industries are typically paying lower wages. We also know that quality childcare exists for only 16% of 3 and 4-year-olds in York County. Think of that, less than 1 out of 5 3 or 4-year-olds has access to quality and affordable childcare. We know that the barriers to accessing capital and entrepreneurial support continue to suppress the creation and success of businesses owned by women and persons of color by nearly 50%. And as we've all experienced in our own ways these past several months, we know right now in York County that less than half of our county residents still lack reliable, high-speed internet to connect them to employment opportunities, education, or telehealth. All of this demonstrates that upward economic mobility is not necessarily widespread, shared, or accessible to all. Our residents face significant barriers to economic opportunity, and our businesses face barriers to attracting and retaining talent, which is why we are incredibly pleased that at the core of the Back to Work plan is the paradigm shift to those people-centered economic policies. But make no mistake, we are still in the throes of a pandemic. In 2020, York County received just over $40 million in CARES funding from our Commonwealth. Our organization assisted the strategic disbursement of those funds, along with the development of 25 miles of fiber optic broadband infrastructure to better connect our county. And we could ensure the largest proportion of those funds were deployed to small businesses and nonprofit organizations with prioritization, not necessarily received other public funding support, or those businesses owned by Black, brown, or low to moderate income individuals. In the earlier stages of the pandemic, York County looked to its strengths in manufacturing to support the shortage of personal protective equipment. It was thanks to the quick and proactive thinking of local companies such as Allegheny York or Old Republic Distillery or even Holla Vodka that supplies could be sourced locally to our first responders and our frontline healthcare heroes. The commitment to invest in manufacturing supply chains and reshoring will expedite our Commonwealth's recovery. We are still in a pandemic, and those relief programs, such as the COVID Hospitality Industry Relief Program that the governor had mentioned, are absolutely vital to the ongoing stability of our small businesses. But a more sustainable and holistic relief strategy is needed, and the Back to Work plan is just that. Our organization is the boots on the ground in York County, and every day we see the need that exists by employers and employees. Before COVID, during COVID, and I am certain well after COVID, our business leaders and our residents will call for the policies and programs outlined in this Back to Work PA plan, which is why we call for a swift passage and bipartisan support of this plan. And in doing so, we can fully unleash Pennsylvania's talented workforce and the muscle of its private sector. It's a great honor to turn this over to elected in 2020, Senator John Kane, who's representing the 9th Senatorial District, which serves primarily Chester and Delaware counties. Senator Kane.
Thank you. And it's an honor to be here with you today and to partner with the Governor Wolf in support of this plan to invest in working families and get our economy back on track. Before being elected to state senate, I was a union plumber for 4 decades. I led my union through the Great Recession in 2008. I have seen personally the toll that this kind of economic downturn takes on working people. During the recession, we had members that struggled to support their families and put food on the table. I lost members to suicide and also to overdoses. There are a lot of people who don't know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, to wait for weeks before they get their unemployment. I do. I know what that's like. I've been there and I've faced it. That's what we're facing now. At the peak of this recession, 1 out of every 7 Pennsylvanians was out of a job. And that unemployment is affecting our low-wage workers, workers of color, and workers with disabilities the most. We can't just sit back and hope this all works out itself, because it's not. We need to do something. We owe it to the people of Pennsylvania to do something. That's why I'm so proud to support Back to Work PA. As you heard, this plan will invest billions of dollars into workforce development and reemployment so we can get our working people back on their feet. For a lot of folks, that's more than just a paycheck. That's dignity. This plan is going to support working families and get our entire economy working again without leaving our most vulnerable folks behind. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Governor Wolf. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Senator Kane.
Thank you. We will now take questions from reporters. We ask that reporters who have a question to please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, and we will call on you. And we'll wait just a moment as reporters raise their hands. Our first question comes from Christian Hetrick. Christian, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Governor. My question is, can we get some more details on the tax portion of this? What's the tax rate? What is the tax applied to? And then my second question is just, can I get some more details about the workforce development piece? You mentioned closing the digital divide and reskilling. Just want to get some more information on like what the specific programs are intended to do. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Christian. And let me just say thank you to the folks who are on this call, Secretary Barrier, Secretary Davin, Kevin Schreiber from York County, and Senator Kane again. Thank you for joining me. So let me see if I can answer these two questions. The first thing is severance tax. This would be in addition to the impact fee. We would keep the impact fee. And the combination would be, we estimate as a percentage of the market price, about 2.8%, which is well below many other states and in line with I think every other state. The 2.8% would allow us to bring in over and above the impact fee about $300 million a year. And if you take that out over a 20-year period, we could afford to have debt service of a $3 billion bond, and that's where the $3 billion comes from. The present value of that would be $3 billion. Again, a severance tax is something that just about every other state, I think we're the only major gas producing state in the United States that doesn't have a severance tax. The other states with severance taxes are conservative states like Oklahoma, Texas, Alaska. Alaska calls it, I think, a gross profits tax. Wyoming on natural resources, West Virginia, Ohio. So we're really just joining the pack. Right now, we have not been able to take advantage of that severance tax, as Secretary Davin said, to pay for the things that other states are paying for right now. Schools, roads, bridges, all those things they're paying for because they have a severance tax. We don't. So we need to have one. This would be a reasonable tax, and I think it's time that again, as Secretary Davin says, 75% of this tax would be paid by out-of-state folks, and it would be a wonderful thing to have all those out-of-state folks contribute to a better life for Pennsylvanians. In terms of what this does, the Back to Work PA plan in terms of skills, it works through CareerLink. And maybe Secretary Barrier could talk a little more about this, but really we have an infrastructure set up, and people who are coming through these CareerLink locations find counseling right now, and end up connecting people who are looking for a job with employers who are looking for employees. And where there isn't a fit, these CareerLink folks have programs to make sure that they connect these people looking for jobs or new skills with places where they can get those new skills, the wraparound services. The money from Back to Work PA would help amplify the programs that are already existing and make them even better. Secretary Barrier, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I just want to say that the pandemic has definitely made us more forward-thinking in the services that we're providing to individuals as we prepare them for jobs of the future. We've expanded our Wi-Fi capabilities. We're offering drive-through career fairs and other types of virtual career counseling that's more thorough and in-depth so that we can better serve and upskill individuals for jobs of the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tom Lehman from WGAL. Tom, go ahead and unmute.
Governor, Secretary, thanks for taking some time to do this today. Governor, I wanted to ask about your approach with this with the legislature. And the reason why I ask is because, you are fighting somewhat of an uphill battle on a lot of the budget issues. But even some House Democrats in the southwestern part of the state came out and called this tax idea a non-starter. Could you talk about your approach there and how you, I guess, are going to try and win people over to get this taken care of?
I'm sorry, which tax are you talking about? The severance tax? Tom? Are you, I'm not sure which tax you're talking, the severance tax, is that? I think again, I go back to Secretary Davin's point that all the states in the United States have a severance tax right now. Pennsylvania stands out as one that does not. And what that has meant is for the many years that we have been taking this resource out of Pennsylvania and exporting most of it, other states have basically gotten, and the stockholders of these companies have gotten the benefit of this. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to encourage, I think, this industry. But we need it to make sure that it's making a great contribution to Pennsylvania. And right now, we are not asking it to do that. I think the total taxes of the entire industry combined last year with all the state taxes was $37 million. $37 million. Plus whatever local folks got from the impact fee. The gas industry does not pay local property taxes. So they're not contributing to the schools. This is a way that I think we can encourage the industry and make sure that it's actually contributing something to Pennsylvania, a Pennsylvania that they need to be a good place to work for their workers and entrepreneurs. So I'm not sure, I hope this is the tax you were talking about, but I think everybody in Pennsylvania should really be in favor of this. This is something that most Pennsylvanians will not pay.
Thank you. Next, we have Michaela from WHTM. Michaela, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, yes, I just wanted a clarification. Is this $3 billion over 10 years or 20 years? When would it begin? And is any of it going to help L&I with unemployment compensation benefits and the issues that they've been dealing with?
The $3 billion is actually the present value, I think, a 20-year bond issue, so that it would basically generate $300 million a year, and to pay off a $3 billion bond issue, you would need to have that over that period of time. It would be about 6 years, I guess, over that period of time. That would be enough to pay, more than enough to pay the principal and interest payments. It would go to pay the number of expenses that the Department of Labor and Industry has, but I don't think, and I'll turn this back to Secretary Berry, I don't think it covers anything in the unemployment compensation area. Secretary Berry?
No, Governor. Yes, thank you. Unemployment compensation is a federally funded program. We receive our funds directly from the federal government, and we're expected to exhaust the funds that were granted by the federal government for regular UC programs and all of the additional programs that have been enacted under the CARES Act.
Thank you. Next, we have Paul from the Pittsburgh Business Times. Paul, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Yes, Governor, I'm wondering, are you concerned about the unintended effect that the severance tax might have? I'm thinking of like the industry, I mean, I cover it, it's in the midst of a transition. Prices in 2020 were through the floor. They're having trouble selling their gas, and some major players like Chevron have left. Are you concerned that if what the impact might be on a severance tax would be in addition to the impact fee for both the state and local governments that depend on the impact fee?
That's why I combine the impact fee and the severance tax combined would still be a very reasonable 2.8%. And again, Chevron left Pennsylvania before we didn't have a severance tax. So evidently that didn't factor into their consideration of where they wanted to be. You're absolutely right. The price of natural gas, price of petroleum products was low in 2020. It seems to have recovered. I think barrel of Brent crude oil is now above $60 a barrel. And that's the first time that's been the case for a long time. There's some thought that may increase. In any case, as you may know, the proposal that I've made here, the 2.8% is an estimate based on what we think the price of gas is going to be. But in any case, in Pennsylvania, this severance tax, unlike other states, actually would fluctuate with the price of the market price of gas. If the price is high, it's one thing. If it's low, the tax that we would impose would be low. Again, this gets embedded into the price of the gas. Every other state that has natural gas is charging, at least the major gas producing states are charging this, and it hasn't seemed to have had that effect. The bad thing right now, or in 2020, was the market price of natural gas. The severance tax really doesn't affect that, and especially a very modest tax like this on top of whatever the price is. Every other state charges it. All the gas industry in every other state has faced this and has worked with this. As for the price, the market price, this tax actually will give the gas industry a break if prices are low.
One follow-up. Some of you talked about the out-of-state companies that would be taxed, but there'd be some in Pennsylvania, EQT, CNX Resources. They're all based in the Pittsburgh area. Would there be any? Would they also? They'd also face the same tax.
But
they pay other taxes as well, corporate net income.
Right. As I said, the total combined was $37 million of all the gas industry. The EQT has gas production facilities all over the country, actually all over the world, I think. So they're already paying the severance tax. The only state they don't pay it in is Pennsylvania. In the other states, the other companies that are headquartered in Pennsylvania, again, this would be a tax at the wellhead. So if the wellhead is in Pennsylvania, they pay the tax, whether the headquarters are in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or anywhere else in Pennsylvania, or whether they're in Texas, they still would pay that tax. Right now, EQT pays all the severance taxes in the states where they do business where there is a severance tax. The only state right now they don't pay any tax on any severance tax is Pennsylvania. I want to change that.
Thank you. Next, we have Crispin from WJAC. Crispin, go ahead and unmute.
Governor Wolf, in terms of the short term, because obviously this would take a while to get into place, in terms of the short term, right now Pennsylvania has the highest insured and unemployment rate among states in the nation. Obviously, the total unemployment at its highest levels in several years. What do you say to Pennsylvanians in the short term as we try to find our footing as we go through the next couple of months? We're obviously still going to have some restrictions as we try to get through the back end, hopefully, of this pandemic.
Yeah, let me just make sure I get the statistics right. The unemployment in Pennsylvania, the rate is actually the same as the national average. So I'm not sure how we're above so many other people. I'm sure we're above others, but we're the national average. I think what we're trying to do here is create a situation in Pennsylvania, take our destiny into our own hands and say, we have a lot of resources. We have a great workforce here. We want to do everything we can to make sure that as we come out of this pandemic, with all the dislocations and disruptions that this has caused for all of us, that we get back on our feet as quickly as possible. Some of that's going to depend on what happens nationally, internationally. Some of that is going to depend on what comes out of Washington with the CARES Act funding, the new rounds that are being considered now in Congress. But I think here in Pennsylvania, we got to take our destiny into our own hands, and to the extent we can, let's figure out how we can make things work right here for our workers, our families, our communities, our businesses, and that's what this plan is about.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Melwart from KYW. Jim, go ahead and unmute. Okay, next we have Megan Majensky. Megan, go ahead and unmute.
If you can hear me.
Okay, so my question today is, a big part of what you're talking about, getting people back to work, getting the economy back up, is getting people vaccinated. It's going to take vaccines to get back to normal. And a lot of you today mentioned people of color, where vaccine rates are very low. How can we ensure that this is going to help people of color when they can't even get vaccines right now?
Well, Megan, that's a great point in terms of we need to make an extra effort to make sure that populations, people of color, are getting access to the vaccine. And we need to do a much better job of that. That's absolutely true. Let me just give you some statistics, though, overall. Right now, the percentage of allocated doses that have been used, the United States average is 84%. We're at 77%, so we need to do better. In terms of the population, at least, the percentage of the population of Pennsylvania who's gotten one shot, at least, that's 13%. The average for the nation is 13%. The percentage of the population with two shots is 4.9% in Pennsylvania and 5.7% in the United States. Now, as you point out, Megan, that hides, I mean, we obviously need to do a better job. We're doing an okay job. But we need to do a better job, and that's especially true when it turns on the populations of color. Pennsylvania needs to do a better job. We are working hard to figure out how to do that, to make sure that everybody who wants a vaccine can get one, and that the folks who might be reluctant to get one, actually, we do something to address that reluctance. We ought to get vaccinated. Everybody ought to get it, and that's the fact. Now, once again, one of the things, there are differences between different populations, but the major constraint we're all facing, every state, is the constraint of supply. We right now have, in our 1A category, we need 9 million vaccines. We've gotten something like 3 million. So we still have a lot of people, even people who are in front of the line, who we just don't have the vaccines for. So we need to do a better job, no question about it. And we especially need to do a better job with communities of color. But this nation needs to do a better job of getting vaccines, get that supply up.
Thank you. Next, we have Bob Mayo from WTAE. Bob, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Each year, you've presented a budget. Some aspect of or rendering of this proposed tax has been a part of your budget. I don't know if you would have these numbers immediately available, but is there any sort of workup available of cumulatively, if this tax had been in effect in Pennsylvania, what revenue it would have generated over time that Pennsylvania's missed out on by not having it, and by comparison, cumulatively, what other states with identical taxes have taken in over that period of time?
I can get that to you. Again, we're looking at this just as an estimate, around $300 million a year. So you can go back 6-7 years and just multiply 7 times 300 million, a little over $2 million, or $2 billion, sorry, that we could have had for schools, for roads, and for bridges, for broadband, for things that would have made life better for Pennsylvanians, right here in Pennsylvania. Most of which would have been paid for by non-Pennsylvanians. So, I can get you the much more formal, less of the back of an envelope calculation, but that's sort of what we're talking about here, $300 million a year.
Thank you. Next, we have Yanni from the Central Penn Business Journal. Yanni, go ahead and unmute.
Good morning, everyone. My questions were primarily answered, but I still think there is something I would like to ask here. If Governor Wolf, if you do find that the severance tax is something that the General Assembly bucks at this year, what can the administration do to create meaningful impacts to workforce if that tax is not available to it?
we'll do the best we can with the resources that the General Assembly allows us to take advantage of. Again, the reason I think the severance tax is such a natural is because we have this resource. We're the second biggest producer, and actually that was, as of might be some old data with the cold patch that Texas faced. Apparently, their gas production was really hit hard, and so I'm not sure where Pennsylvania is right now. But before that, we were number 2. So we're a big producer, and we're the only major producer without a severance tax. And the way the severance tax works is that, as the Secretary Davin said, the 75% of the gas is actually used outside of Pennsylvania and purchased outside of Pennsylvania, which means that the people who would be paying this tax would be non-Pennsylvanians for the most part. So it's a lot of money, and it's not something that would be borne by Pennsylvanians. And I'm not sure why it has been such a heavy lift, but it seems to me it would be one of the easiest taxes to actually impose, one of the greatest sources of fund. And if we don't take advantage of it, I'm not sure there is an alternative way to actually do the things we need to do to make the quality of life better right here in Pennsylvania. We have it right now. We have the ability to do that. And shame on us if we don't take advantage of it.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions today. I'd like to thank Governor Wolf.
Back to Jim.
Oh, I apologize. We have one last question from Jim Melwert at KYW. Jim, go ahead and unmute. Sorry about that.
The radio guy can't figure out how to turn up a microphone, right?
It happens. It happens.
We're hearing some pharmacies and vaccine providers got 0 vaccine last week, first or second doses, and don't have any indication what they'll get this week, understanding the issues that the Department of Health is going through, sorting through the first and second doses. But they're having to cancel appointments. They say they can't reschedule because they're left in the dark and effectively leaving their customers in the dark, and they're unable to get any answers from the Department of Health or from your administration, understanding the greater demand and supply and all the other issues. But just for their purposes, when can providers and patients expect maybe some clarity on going forward?
Yeah, Jim, that's a great question. Again, there is some inherent lack of clarity just because we don't control the allocation to Pennsylvania of the vaccine. But that's not meant to be an excuse. We need to do a better job. And one of the areas we need to do a better job is communicating with the providers so that we're all on the same page. And I acknowledge we need to do a much better job there. We have, as I announced, I think 2 weeks ago, last week, that we have a vaccine task force made up of representatives of the Republican caucus in the House, the Democratic caucus in the House, the Republican caucus in the Senate, the Democratic caucus in the Senate, and we meet at least twice a week. When we have emergency sessions, sometimes we've met actually more frequently than that. And tomorrow is our next meeting, and the Department of Health is tasked with the responsibility of presenting a plan to improve dramatically the communications between us and our providers. I think, as I mentioned, with we're doing an average job about when it comes to getting doses out, but we need to do. This is Pennsylvania. We need to do an extraordinarily good job, and that's the goal that we have. So we need to improve. And Jim, we have the goal of doing that through this task force, and we continue to work on making sure that we do a better and better job. So thank you for that question.
And is there any indication how the consulting company that's coming in, how that might fit into the picture?
We're using Boston Consulting Group, probably one of the most distinguished consulting groups in the United States, and they have a footprint in a number of different states. So one of the great things that they can bring, and they already have, but they're working with the Department of Health right now on this plan, they can bring best practices from other states. Everybody's facing this. Everybody is facing the different challenges that are inherent in supply that just simply isn't up to where demand needs to be. But even if supply were up to demand, we still here in Pennsylvania need to do a better job. That's true all across the country, and as I showed, we're average. We need to do better than that, and that's the goal of this task force, and that's my goal.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions today. I'd like to thank Governor Wolf, Acting Secretary Barrier, Secretary Davin, Kevin Schreiber, Senator Kane, and our reporters participating today. That concludes today's press conference.